Cool. Okay, so last week I started with asking you guys to, first stand up. Kind of it was more just a standing thing, moving around a little bit and recognizing, what thoughts prevent you from wanting to stand up. And so today we're going to be moving into the next step of that, thing. And I'm going to ask you all to stand up again. And I'm going to ask you actually to dance with me for 2 minutes. And during this time, just recognizing that this movement is what allows us to create a revolution. Because if we create one from fear, it won't work. We have to feel free to move. We have to feel free to dance. So what in your mind doesn't want you to dance?
The first man's name was Kiki. He wore such little pants. His brother was the champion, but Kiki loved to dance.
What gets you to not speak?
The second man was Choo-Choo, a master of romance. He loved the damsel in distress, but not as much as dance.
We're going to be going over all 4 lands, learning lots of lessons.
And then one day it happened. They went off to the world. They went on to a journey, idolized by the boys and girls. They learned so many lessons in all the foreign lands. But no matter where they wound up, they never stopped the dance. One day inside the station, in Amsterdam perchance, the men were dancing side by side by the man with a crooked glance. They turned to face each other. It was just happenstance that these 2 men would meet that day and do that fateful dance. Wow, you can really dance. Wow, you can really dance. He went. He went. They said we've both been dancing all this time. What a coincidence. And then they danced together like no one's danced before. The diplomats were dancing, they cancelled all of the war. No more. The whole world celebrated, was no more violence. And all because these men crossed paths. What a coincidence! Dance, 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 dance,
And we left off last week. We kind of left off with the Medici family, kind of like going into that and going into a little bit of, the historic treaties and the Aboriginals and all that. So I just want to kind of go into a little bit. So the last Medici, let me do the presentation. Present. There we go. So the last Medici Grand Duke Gian Gaston died without a male heir in 1737, which that was when the family dynasty died with him. Now this wasn't, I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but this wasn't the last Medici family dying. The last of it was kind of like the end of a banking era. Like this is the family that I talked about. How from, hold on. Oops, I didn't mean to ask to unmute you then. There we go. So basically from, 1215, when the monarch started to allow the, normal people to work with them, that's when the Medicis, were able to become a banking family for the papal and all that. But, from that time until 1737 is a long time. 1215 till 1737. It's a long time for a family that in the eyes of the nobles was not really a noble family, but became one. In the eyes of these nobles, the Medicis had actually become a de facto ruler of Florence, and this was before Italy. It was like Florence, Naples, Rome, you know, when it was all the different republics. And it was, in fact, the Medicis who fought for the Florentine Republic, who fought for, you know, freedom for all people. And Lorenzo Medici was, Cosimo Medici was the father of, or grandfather of Lorenzo Medici the Magnificent, who was all about, they were all about the Republic. So, you know, we're going to be talking about the American Republic and then how the American Republic was lost to history, okay? But yeah, I do want to start off with the date that the Medici family, so basically the age of and allowing people to express all of that ended 1737, you know, and this gave other families an opportunity to rise. The chief among the international financiers of the time was Amschel Bauer of Germany, who in 1748 opened a goldsmith shop under the name Redfield. In German, it is spelled Rothschild. It's pronounced like Rothschild in the Redfield in German. And he had 5 sons, and he said, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." Okay, so in 1798, Rothschild sent his 5 sons to open banks in Naples, London, Paris, Vienna, and Germany. The objective was to begin fractional reserve banking. If anyone's not muted, if you can mute yourself. Gotcha, Sam. The objective was to begin fractional reserve banking, which is a special privilege given to a group of men to create credit out of thin air and loan this credit debt to anyone else in society. In their collections of having just made up money, they in turn became very rich because obviously their goal was to, it's all good, Sam. Their goal was to, you know, get all the money. Oh, I accidentally went out of order here. Okay, so based off this system, the group of men controlling the debt made of air would eventually have control over all the gold in the world. Then once all that gold was in their hands, the Rothschilds became the real controllers of nations, okay? They only started loaning money, to friends and allies, and the people started getting limited credit. Due to this, oh wait, didn't I skip something here? Oh yeah, so actually right here. So the Treaty of Paris is what ended the Revolutionary War in 1783. And United States inspired other nations to rise up. French Revolution, the Polish Uprising. And do you remember when I talked about how when America came and America set themselves free in America from Britain, the main thing that destroyed for Britain was the money. Because all of a sudden, all these people no longer belong to Britain, they belong to something called America. So Britain lost nationals, and they could see the Americans had won the military battle, and the monarchies of other countries wanted to stop the spread of this contagion called democracy. They knew they had to attack them politically. They had to attack America politically and send in spies, and the long war began. Okay. In the Jay Treaty, 1794, the United States, even though they had won the Revolutionary War, they had created Declaration of Independence, there were still people within the Senate of that time that believed that they had done King George and Britain wrong by starting that revolution. So these people actually agreed, these part of the government agreed to pay 600,000 pounds of sterling silver to King George III as reparations for waging the American Revolutionary War. The US Senate ratified this in a secret session and ordered that it not be published. Benjamin Franklin's grandson published it anyway, and this exposure led to the Alien and Sedition Act, where a judge could prosecute editors and publishers for reporting the truth about the government. Okay, and due to all this, by the time Washington became president, there was already a financial crisis, and because of this, they had to create a private bank to service the debt to the international bankers in Europe. December 12th, 1791, the first private bank of the United States opened its doors in Philadelphia. The bankers loaned worthless, unbacked, non-secured money to the Americans, okay? Federalists won the vote for banking, and initial capital loaned was 10 million. That's what the, basically the Rothschilds loaned the United States. 80% of it was owned by foreign bankers, okay? The United States Bank was authorized to loan 20 million, double its paid capital. It was a profitable deal for both parties because they could charge interest. I would actually like to say that, you know, this is where I kind of want to go back a little bit to the Medicis, because during this time, the Medicis were they were a great banking family, and usury was not a part of God's law. It still is not. Usury is the act of interest, okay? And so going into this interest thing, they could charge interest. This is already showing you that this is against God's law. And during the Medici times, like what was happening, why banks started to even get like this is because you know, the Medicis had the papal bank account, and they would loan money to the papal bank account, but they weren't able to charge interest. And then a new pope, you know, the pope would die, and a new pope would show up, and the Medicis would go, okay, we're ready to get our money back. And the new pope would be like, actually, the last pope spent all that money. I don't have any to pay you back. The Medicis were shit out of luck. So they would have to go trade. They would have to go, you know, find another country that would give them money so that they could then trade something. And they would do it by selling off their daughters, by marrying their children to that place, you know. So these were trades, okay? That was a form of trade. But back then, there was no interest. There was no usury. There was a lot of claiming that there was. And I'm sure there was like underneath it all, but overall, the intention of banking was loan, you know, trade. It could be money. It could be for a service. It could be for a marriage. It could be for whatever, but it was an equal energy exchange that was spoke about and agreed upon. The meeting of the minds came together, and they all autographed whatever that came together, okay? Now going back to this time, by 1796, which the bank opened in when did the bank open? Sorry, 1791. By 1796, the United States owed $6,200,000 in loans to the bank, and the U.S. government was forced to sell its shares to the bankers. So even that 20% that the United States, I really want to make sure that you guys see this right here. The United States is capital United. The United States had to sell most of its shares back to the bankers, and after 1802, the U.S. government owned 0 shares in their own bank. Okay, December 12th. Because of all this, sorry, this is the page, but because of all this happening, Washington, Jefferson, and they all saw what was happening, so they created what we call the Titles of Nobility Act. And I have a book right here that I'm just going to read a little excerpt from. So basically, the concern about many English spies and troublemakers, Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to prevent anyone who had an English title and connections with England from obtaining any seat in government in the United States, called the Titles of Nobility Act. And this is what it says, little paragraph. If any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. Okay, so yes, all attorneys, esquires, which I'm gonna basically the titles of nobility had been prohibited in both articles of the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, but there was no penalty for breach of this act. Okay, so this act, even though it was put into motion and talked about, that's kind of where they left it. And again, why that is later on there was Britain sent in a bunch of people to burn down a lot of things. So actually almost every history of the Titles of Nobility Act was almost eradicated because of fires. And, you know, right here during the War of 1812, our national archives and many libraries were purposely burned. So most evidence of the Titles of Nobility Act disappeared. They were only found to be in certain people's literal journals that happened to be there. So that's another thing. It's like, you know, you read a journal that's going to go down in history if somebody finds it after you die, as fact. So, you know, just be aware of what you're writing down in your journals. On January 9th, this was a little bit later, Andrew Jackson is the Second National Bank applied for its renewal of the charter 4 years earlier. And Andrew Jackson was like he was trying to do what he could to get rid of the bank. This time, President Jackson vetoed the bank's recharter on the grounds that the bank was unconstitutional, and he successfully paid off the national debt, leaving the United States with a surplus of $5 grand. Yes, he did it. On January 30th, 1835, Andrew Jackson barely escaped being murdered at point blank range because of the gun backfired. The gun backfired twice. Andrew Jackson arguably violated international law because he denied the creditor his just lien rights on the debtor. However, the bankers did not lend value, aka substance, so they had an unperfected lien. So what does that mean? Basically, when Andrew Jackson went after, did this, the bankers tried to say that he broke the law. And if the bankers would have loaned America real $10 million backed by gold, he would have broken the law. But because they actually did not lend value with actual substance, aka gold behind it, there was no actual law in case. So that is why, you know, when you get money from a loan from a bank, why they can't actually go after you if you don't pay it off, unless you give them consent by accidentally, unknowingly, ignorantly contracting with them. Okay. The bankers did get the last laugh when they plastered Andrew Jackson's face all over Federal Reserve notes. Because, you know, it didn't really matter that he did that. It did because it showed people what was happening. But what really altered the history of the United States was later on, in 1861, the Southern states walked out of Congress, which ceased the power that Congress had. And because they have not reconvened or set a date to reconvene, Abraham Lincoln, who was the president at that time, had no choice but to give his first proclamation, which the undercase, United States, because they are no longer united, has been ruled by presidential elective power ever since. He had to put because the southern states would not come back, he had to put the president in charge. Okay. This also put us in martial law because it made the president, you know, all states that were party to the Constitution for the United States of America cease to exist. Eventually, Congress reconvened under the military authority of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, no longer under constitutional law. Okay. President Lincoln was actually assassinated before he could complete his plan to constitutionally reform the southern states and restore Congress. And because of that, we have been under marital law ever since. I would like to rectify that Abraham Lincoln, you know, is not a bad guy. He was doing what he could based off the law, based off what was actually happening. And I have another little excerpt here. This martial rule or martial law had been hidden from the public and has never ended. Ever since 1861, the United States of America has been ruled under military law by the commander-in-chief. Constitutional law under the original Constitution for the American states is enforced only as a matter of keeping the peace under the provisions of the Lieber Code and martial law rule. The peace is evidenced in the preamble of the Expatriation Act, sorry, of 1868. Under martial law rule, title of ownership, this is huge, you guys, title of ownership is a mere fiction, since all property belongs to the military, except for such property as the commander-in-chief may in his benevolence exempt from seizure and taxation, upon which he allows the enemy to reside. In proclaiming this first Trading with the Enemy Act by executive order, President Lincoln set in place the means by which the federal government could interact with the Americans who were not 14th Amendment citizens. They were technically designated to be enemies of the United States. Can you now see why we, the people, are at odds with our government? Yes. Yes. Well, that's the thing is I'm going to go into it. There are two. Okay. There's two of everything. There's the Constitution for the United States of America, which is ours, the one we learned about, the one we love. And then there's the Constitution of the United States of America, which is a completely different constitution. They changed one word in the title. And it's the one that corporations are ruling us with. And that's the corporate, basically the corporate charter of the United States. And then going further into that, and just so you guys know, this book is called Reclaim Your Sovereignty by David E. Robinson, and it goes into a lot more history, but this is like kind of a direct history to where you can know that, again, we can't resolve anything with fear. So I don't tell fear-based stories. I don't David E. Robinson. He has a lot of books. He has Be the One to Execute Your Trust, Asset Protection, Control Your Political Status. Yeah. Robinson. Robin, and then son. Okay, and so then 1865, just before the close of the Civil War, President Lincoln declared his new monetary policy. Okay, this would have been huge. Okay, you guys, it would have been huge. The government should create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credit it needs to satisfy the spending power of the government and the purchasing power of consumers. By the adoption of these principles, the taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be master and become the servant of humanity. The privilege of creating the issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of government, but it's also the government's greatest opportunity. Had Lincoln's monetary policy been implemented, it would have ushered in a worldwide economic renewal. Unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated a few weeks after his monetary policy was announced and introduced because he defied the bankers in proposing to print interest-free money to pay for the war debt. Thus, the government continues to operate under the authority of private laws dictated by the credit financiers. So then, 6 years later, now that Congress is under military and, it's backed by the foreign financial bankers, Congress passed a law in 1871 to incorporate the District of Columbia, and they offered government. Yes, America really we didn't have very much time doing it on our own, but it's okay. Yes, they have been running the country ever since. Not all of the country though, because we're going to go into it because it's still stuff. They have to give consent, which that's what we're going to go into. Okay. So because the Declaration of Independence was set in stone, because our Constitution was set in stone, we are a free people. We are sovereign. We are Americans, American state nationals. Okay. We are American state nationals. If you were born in California, you're a Californian. You were born in Idaho, you're Idahoan. If you were born in Mississippi, you're a Mississippian. Okay. And in 1871, Congress, under the military, offered government protection to all the Southern slaves if they became citizens of this corporation. Okay, so basically they created a new United States of America, and this one was in all caps, and it created a new class of citizen, which was now you could be a citizen of the United States of America, all caps, and you would be protected by the bankers, by the, by the debtors, by the creditors, and, that's that path of like someone becoming a secured party creditor. If you've heard that path, that's becoming a creditor within the corporation of the United States of America, all caps. Okay, so which is cool, which is great. That's cool, but as someone who, didn't even volunteer to be a citizen of all caps United States of America, my mom signed me up to be a citizen of the United States of America. I didn't choose that. And that's what the heart of our Declaration of Independence is just because there are two constitutions, just because there are two of everything, doesn't mean you have to be a part of them both. It doesn't mean you have to be a part of either. It doesn't even mean you have to choose. This is just information, okay? Because the Declaration of Independence gave you the right to self-declare. So if you want to declare yourself as I declare myself as shenanigans, because I just give out shenanigans, I can do that. I've self-declared as Victoria Marie Myers Bay. I've self-declared as a diplomatic plenipotentiary, someone who is a diplomat that can sign and create my own contracts. Like I'm an American state national. I'm a Californian. These are all self-declaring statuses that as long as I can say them, and when I say them, I know the meaning of them, I can be that. Now, if someone's like, oh, I'm a diplomatic plenipotentiary? Wait, what am I? You said I was an American state national? Is that what I am? I don't know. No one can declare for you. But most of the people are so used to a corporation declaring for them, that's what they got used to. And they're okay with other people declaring for them. Okay. In 1871, the same year, obviously, the corporate United States was already near bankrupt due to the international bankers still having the gold. Okay, this is when two governments were created, two flags, two of everything. Okay, so we're gonna do this quick. Okay, so in the 10-mile square District of Columbia was incorporated in England. A loophole had been left in the Constitution by, do you remember how I mentioned there were people that agreed to pay Britain back for the American Revolutionary War? These were the same people that were basically lawyers and esquires that came into America and were like saying they're pro Declaration of Independence and pro all this stuff, but they really were still pro England and pro all that because that's where they had come from. And so basically a loophole had been left in the Constitution by those lawyers in league with the international bankers that created a separate nation by the same name Congress ruled according to Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 17 and 18. So the Congress shall have power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles as may by the cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislator of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers by this Constitution in the government of the United States or any department or officer thereof. So basically, this is what the District of, they gave power to the federal United States. Okay, this is where they gave the this is the it's a legislative democracy within the constitutional republic, and it's known as the federal United States. It has exclusive and unlimited rule over its citizenry. The residents of the District of Columbia and its enclaves and territories, Guam, Midway Islands, Wake Islands, Puerto Rico, etc., and anyone who is a citizen naturalized by the 14th Amendment. This is why they can garnish your wages. This is why they can, you know, send debt collectors after you. This is why they can tax you, not necessarily tax per se. That's other things that got you into that. But this is like why they can do whatever they want to you, because your parents signed you up as a citizen of the corporate United States of America without knowing. Now, some people are like, well, I didn't sign it, so like whatever, which is cool, but then like, you know, what happens when you get involved with the police and you don't actually know your rights, and they're like, well, you're in our system, you're a citizen, so you're going, let's go. And they take you. What are you gonna do? You know? So this is where reclaiming your sovereignty, there is a revocation of your citizenship. You know, some people just go on and self-declare and do all that stuff, which is cool. But then I want to remind you guys, before I go into this another page 52, I want to go into the SDK Act, the SDK Trust Act of 1666. Which still, you know, going on today. Yes. Yes, there is the corporate United States, which we are all signed up for at birth, and the actual United States, which you are born into at birth. The actual United States, you are a national to. So that is a God-given right. The citizenship was a privilege, okay? And how do you know the difference between a privilege and a right? A privilege, they will, like, for example, you don't need a license to have a restaurant. You just open up a PMA. You don't need a license to do anything. That's a privilege that they took away your right, and they're trying to sell it back to you. Yeah, to represent yourself, you have to go to the school, you have to pay us a lot of money, and then you got to pay yearly to be in this bar, you know, this workers union. You got to pay us for your right to represent yourself. Exactly, exactly. Privilege, corporation, citizens have privileges and are part of corporations, and rights, and nationals have rights. Now, going into the SDK Act of 1666, basically, 1666 was a time, which I mean, I'll be going into later on some certain things. Basically, there was a lot of people, a lot of trust. The way trusts work is a family has a private express trust that is handed down to their children. That's why, like, the Medici family, how they could last like 500 years living in the same homes, living in the same places, it's because all their properties were in trust that were then handed down to their children. Now, you know, after, you know, 1620, when people started going to America and people started, you know, going off to other lands and going to the overseas and going to things, well, they left all their property. It's just sitting there. No one's using it. That's weird. So the SDK Act of 1666 said, if you go overseas and if you don't let us know, your republic or your government know that you are alive after 7 years, you are considered dead. You can own no property. You can own nothing. You cannot, you will be in debt. You have nothing to your name. You are a dead entity. Now, when we were registered as citizens, we didn't really know that, you know, and if we didn't declare ourselves as nationals within 7 years, we would lose all of our rights. We would lose all of our familial property. We would lose everything that our ancestors handed down to us. Now, of course, they don't tell you this. They don't tell you that. So this is, again, why self-declaration is important, to make known to others who you are and that you are alive, because your ancestors actually worked a lot for you, and there is property and land on this world that is yours. So it's up to you to decide if you want to step forward and claim that, or, you know, you can start over and self-declare. You know, I tried that. I became my own nation and was like, yeah, I'm a diplomatic penitentiary. I didn't have an army. I didn't have a bank. So wait, if we don't sign up for privileges after 7 years old, no, basically what you're a little bit mistaken in the sense of, no, like if you look at like our parents' deeds to their homes, they don't actually own them. Basically, the moment you declare, you get everything back. That's part of the SDK Trust Act. But after 7 years, if your family hadn't claimed their stuff for 7 years, so this happened long before you were born, Sam. Your family, as long as they've been citizens of the United States of America, that's when the 7 years began. So they've had your property and your family's land for a long time. There's nothing that you personally could have done as a 7-year-old to change this. I love you though. And so basically though, that's what's happening right now, is nationals are waking up because when they declare and get to their minor estate, the corporation, the United States, calls this basically you have to do the work, you revoke your citizenship, there's a decent amount of work that's got to be done, some papers, some things. You gotta handle all your affairs. Oh my God, I signed all these contracts with the corporation. Got to get myself out of those. Okay, so basically there's steps that one must take, and then eventually they get in front of something called a probate judge, which then they have a conversation with the probate judge where you prove to the judge that you're alive. You show them the declarations, you show them your revocation of citizenship, you show them your deed of reconveyance, that you took ownership of all that you're a living person, you know, like there's steps. The trust that you're you know, you don't have to show them the trust because that's in the air, but you show them the land, and there's something, then you get access to the trust that was created when you were born. Okay. That is the corporation calls this a rapture, because when you get to this point, they get you to sign an NDA and you are then moved and never heard from again. Okay, so a lot of this happens with all the people that are suicided, or all the people that you are told they died. Oh my God, I can't believe they died like that. Oh my God, I can't believe they committed suicide. No. A lot of them were just raptured. They were given a new identity, a new name, a new place to live, and were able to live their life. Okay. Yeah, so that's that. And then going to one more little thing. Okay, so now going into the two constitutions real quick, because I want to finish on the two governments, two flags, two constitutions. So the original Constitution was simply set aside to make room for the New World Order Constitution, or New World Order Corporation. Would this act benefit the Republic? No. The corporate bottom line is private profit. The municipal bottom line was public service instead. So their goal was to reprogram the mind to believe, to replace our service orientation. You know how we're like, oh, I love to be in service, I love to help people, I can't help it. Like, when I'm feeling good, I just want to help other people. Okay, to replace our service oriented form of government with a profit oriented form of government. Okay. This was without our knowledge or consent. So this was an act of treason. Okay. But what this did is, over time, it's distorted the acts of service that come from us naturally. This is why sometimes when we just give of ourselves, there's a part of us that's like, well, why aren't I getting paid? Am I going to get paid for this? Like, am I going to get something out of this? Am I going to make a profit from this? Okay. So that's where, this is where this started to come in, the confusion between like service and making a profit. And then all of a sudden we had two constitutions. They simply changed the name. The Constitution that we believe in, that is, promotes our freedoms, is the Constitution for the United States. And it is, not all caps, it's like normal writing. And then the Constitution of the United States in all caps is the corporation's constitution. Okay, so then, like I said, 1871, the federal government formed itself into a corporation and pulled itself out from the Constitution. In 1913, the Federal Reserve central banks were created. And in 1933, President Roosevelt rewrote and reinstituted the Trading with the Enemies Act of 1917. and applied it only to the 14th Amendment citizens of the federal United States. So basically, he reinstituted that everyone that is not basically, if you don't work for the government, if you are a bar agent, if you work for the CIA, the FBI, CPS, any governmental agency, you are not an enemy of the United States. If you are a citizen, you are an enemy of the United States. And again, this is why they are able to search you. They are able to come into your homes and take things from you. They are able to just go into your cars. They are able to do any of that because you guys haven't corrected your status. And so they're going to be able to keep doing that. Then also in 1933, I know you guys know President Roosevelt was famous for his speech. We have nothing to fear except fear itself. So this began the programming of fear. That if we bombard them with fear, and the president tells them that all you need to be scared of is fear, no revolution can ever be had. So all of these people that are bombarding you with fear-based stories, they don't even realize that they're still involved in the corporate psyop of trying to control people with fear. Okay? Fear, false evidence appearing real. If it's not happening to you, it's not actually happening. If you heard it happening, is it actually happening to you? Okay? We can get ourselves in a lot of trouble with ourselves and our lives when we listen to the fear-based stories of other people and not focus on what's right in front of us. Okay? In 1933, President Roosevelt also took away the gold from the people, thereby leaving the people without money for paying their debts. Well, that's weird. How am I going to pay their debts? Huh. He also created HJR 192 of June 5th, 1933. Simply put, well, since the government took all your gold and the people had no money, the government's going to pay off the debt for the people, thereby giving the people unlimited credit. Unlimited credit. Yeah. So you know what? There was a boom in businesses. There was a boom in entrepreneurship. There was a boom in a lot of things during this time. Okay. And then in 1938, the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins made contracts a rule of law in our court. In 1946, we lost our governments and courts through the Administrative Procedures Act, which I feel like where is that? Yeah, like, oops. Oh yeah, so this is basically the Administration Procedures Act. This is all of those statutes and things that they claim that you have to follow all the laws. So basically, because of this act, the corporation was able to be like, yo, we're allowed to make whatever laws we want, and because you guys are citizens, you have to follow them. Even as small as I can write you a ticket for not having your dog on a leash because I control you. Oh my God, I can't tell you guys, people that know me know that I'm an off-leash dog walker. I got a German Shepherd. I can't tell you how many evil looks I get because Americans don't realize that they had their freedom programmed out of them and they look at freedom like it's wrong now because of this Administrative Procedures Act, because of all these statutes and all these rules and all these things that None of them actually abide. None of them actually control someone who has declared their status. Okay, and the status doesn't actually have to do with declaration on paper. If you are able to declare your status and have a conversation with another person while remaining in your power, then it's no problem talking to the police. You know, if you get a ticket and you're demanding your license and registration, which is them asking you to contract, you're able to talk to them. No, I don't contract with the United States Corporation. I don't do that. I'm a national. Thanks. You know, if you're able to have that, you know, you're confident within yourself, you know, you can do that. Not all people are. In 1965, silver was taken away as a means for paying debts, and the UCC became the supreme law for America concerning the banking system, and the courts were pulled together in administrative, admiralty law of water, and civil altogether, contract or common corporation. And the act and intent were brought together, thereby taking away any plea of innocent. You now have to prove there was no intent, and you are guilty until proven innocent as a citizen of the United States of America. This is why the police treat you the way they do. This is why police are allowed, or believe they are allowed, to treat citizens the way that they do, because you are all agreeing to being guilty until proven innocent in everything that you do as a citizen of America. And then here I'm going into the act that made it to where if someone could not be found or heard from in over 7 years, they are to be considered dead, and their property and lands and titles could be sold or given to another nobility. The moment they proved they were alive, they would get all their titles and lands revested. Okay. This is just kind of going into my next class or whatever. Because I do want to show some of you 1615. We came over, or the English came over to America in 1620, which was only 5 years after the cross of planning started. But that's for the fourth class that I'm going to be adding. The hierarchy of laws right here. So contract law is obviously, it's down here, you guys. Offer acceptance equals contract. So if you there's 8 points to a contract. So most of the contracts that you're involved in are fraudulent. Okay. So just because you sign something doesn't mean, oh my God, I have to do it, especially because when you signed it, there was a bunch of fraudulent things going on in the background that they didn't tell you about. So I want to just go down this hierarchy of laws, because you cannot beat universal laws. You know, deal with energies, main principle, whatever energy you put out must come back to you. This is why it is key to stay positive, to stay kind, to not to be overrun by fear. Okay. Instead of false evidence appearing real, you face everything and rise. And what that looks like is, again, I kind of feel like I spoke about it last week, is, remember, they're attacking our cells. So sometimes when we read something fear-based, our nervous system starts to go like this, starts to shake, like, and it might, I'm just showing you my hands aren't like really shaking, and it might not be like this abrupt, but you're gonna feel in some you know, groups, they call it triggered. Your nervous system gets triggered. Okay. And during these times, these moments of triggering, is when the mind will start to do its best to measure, to tell you what's going on inside the body. Okay. It will say, oh, I felt this before. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. It's this. It's that. Oh, we have to go do this. We have to go do that. We have to go do this. If we go do this, we'll stop feeling like this. If we go eat food, we'll stop feeling like this. If we go drink, if we go do this, if we go do that, we'll stop feeling like this. And that is actually how they're beating us. They're instilling fear which is triggering the nervous system into chaos, getting the mind to not be able to think clearly, when the mind will then make a deal with you. If I go eat food, then I won't feel like this anymore. If we go out, if we go do whatever, then I won't feel like this anymore, without realizing that it's your own mind that can actually control how your nervous system is feeling. Okay, so natural laws dealing with the natural ways of all objects and beings which have manifested in the third dimension, meaning your body. Okay, your body is a natural law. It has electricity, it has energy, it has literal physical substance to it. Okay, and so it's natural. Okay, now I invite you to make other kinds of deals with your mind. You know, when fear is coming in, when you're reading the stories in the groups, when, you know, oh my God, prepare yourself for November 30th. Prepare yourself. This is really how they get people to live in the future and miss out of their own life, of what's going on. You better be prepared. Are you prepared yet? Are you prepared? Are you prepared for everything to crash? Are you prepared? They will get you in a state of feeling like you need to prepare, and then that gets you to skip steps in the present moment. And maybe, you know, like you made a mistake on your paperwork or your parchments, or you made a mistake here or there, you accidentally signed something because there was a little bit of triggering, or, you know, you couldn't fully process what was going on. So you just to end it, you signed the ticket and walked away. And then, you know, now you owe $800 and you know, so all of that is cyclical. Okay, and so the deal I recommend to make with your mind is, hey, if I sit with this for 2 minutes, then we can go eat. So instead of, you know, I can go eat and this is done, it's, let me sit with this. If we feel this, if we allow ourselves to feel this, we can ask our mind questions. You know, the mind's like, oh, we have to prepare. We have to go buy a bunch of gold. We have to go do this. Do we? Can I get gold right now? No? Sitting in this chair? No? Okay. Because if you were meant to be getting gold, excuse me, you would be on your way getting gold. It would be happening. It wouldn't just be in your mind. Okay. And this is what they do with false evidence appearing real, is they create all these steps that you have to take to be free. To be free, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. You don't. As long as you feel comfortable, whenever a time arises and someone's like, who's you? You are able to declare in those moments. So if you ever deal with a police officer or a policy officer or a policy enforcer, or if you ever deal with someone like that, a lawyer or a debt collector, they're coming at you. You don't not respond, okay? Because that would be going silent by acquiescence. You're agreeing by silence. You can reject contract, you can say no. Okay, it's just, do you feel confident saying no to a policy enforcer, policeman, when they say, hand me your license and registration? Are you comfortable saying no yet? Or is your nervous system like this when there's police around? Because if your nervous system's like this when there's police around, you're not free. You are not free. If you look at a policeman and, you know, fear hits you, you're not free. Okay, so it's really just looking at, are you sovereign within your own mind? Because you are within your body, you are within this life. It's the mind that was programmed by the corporation. Okay, next layer is the laws of Maxim. This is also known as God's laws. These laws come straight out of the Bible. They're the highest laws of the land. They are the rights given by God to all beings and cannot be taken away by anyone. This is basically the your unalienable rights. You have unalienable rights. Basically, you're breathing. You didn't ask to be born, and no one can take that life from you. No one can take those rights from you except for you. And that's why in, like, say for example, you hit you I don't know, what's a crime? I don't even know a crime. Say you jaywalk, rawr. You jaywalk and it causes an accident, whatever, something happens. And they throw you, they arrest you and they take you. There are 3 signatures that are needed to put you in jail. Okay, yours, the judges, and the prosecutors. Yours, the judges, and the prosecutors. Well, who in their right mind would put themselves in jail? Who in their right mind would sign a contract saying that, like, let's go to jail? Well, who in their right mind would allow somebody else to represent that right mind by hiring a lawyer? A lot of people. So what did these corporations do? Created the bar. You know, the bar's been around for a while, but that was like, hey, we can create these people that know about our corporation. You know, we can program them with our corporate laws, and then we can get free people to sign away their freedom by offering them free representation. You know, you don't even have to pay for this. This person will represent you and fight for you, even though they don't even know. To you, like, to them, you don't exist. Okay, so not very many lawyers out there are able to represent a true sovereign, a true living being, because no one can tell you how you feel. No one can tell you who you are, and no one can speak for you. Okay. This was even a huge part of why there were so many wars, because literally a king would tell his servant or his messenger, go tell this other king this. And that messenger had just been madly rejected by the king's daughter. And so emotionally, he just goes and lies to the other king, and then a war begins because the messenger had something personal going on. Okay, so this is why being sovereign and speaking for yourself is a huge part of freedom and liberation. Okay, sovereign, human being, a being that is master of self, operates under God's law, has the ability to create laws and constitutions for itself and corporations that it creates. So the thing is the corporation constitution is not unconstitutional. You can actually create your own corporation. You can create your own reality with your own words, with your own meaning. Okay, because language is not the vehicle that changes the world. The belief behind the language is what changes the world. So there's a lot of people that are researching all the laws of the past and figuring out what they meant by the words, so then they could then write their own parchments and their own declarations, when no, those are not your words. Okay, when you declare, there's something called you know, when you're reading like a paper and there's like this word that you come across and there's like a little one next to it, or a little asterisk, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't know what that word means. But then you go down to the bottom and there's like a little asterisk or a little one, and you're like, oh, this word means this. Okay, now if you think about history, how many people wrote down history papers or wrote down things where at the bottom they gave their own language to a word they utilized in the picture, or the word they utilized in the paper? So many. As a history major, so many. There would be more of those sometimes than the actual words. Okay, so it's important that you are aware that whenever, if ever, you create a contract, you create something, that you know what you mean by the words that you're saying. And if you're writing it down on paper and you know that other people don't understand or understand the words that you're saying, then you can define them for the reader at the bottom of the page. That is your right as a sovereign who is able to create laws and constitutions and for yourself and for the corporations that you create. If you want to incorporate and create a bunch of bylaws and get people to you know, subscribe to your corporation, that's cool. That's cool, you know. But you know, don't be asking other corporations to subscribe to your corporation because they won't. Then the next one is the contract laws. So this is the set of laws which sovereigns worldwide adhere to in commerce, which is offer plus acceptance equals contract. And I mean, this goes a little bit further in, there's the 8-point contract, but the main is there's 5 points. The 8-point is a little bit more involved, but the 5 parts. It's an 8-point contract, but 5 parts. Offer, 1 is offer, 2 is acceptance, 3 is consideration, you know. 4 is the signatures of all parties to the contract, and 5, full disclosure and mutual understanding of the terms. Do you see that? So if you signed a contract where they did not actually explain the terms to where you understood them, the contract is null and void. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just, oh, all right, cool, it's done. What that means is, you know, you got to figure out what contracts you're in. And because they definitely kept copies, most likely, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, you call those people and you get the contract. Okay, and that is what we will also be going over next week a lot. Like I want you guys to take these 2 weeks that we have off to find out whatever contracts you're in. Find out, you know, if you got credit card companies coming after you, if you got a bank, if you got a credit card that's open but you're tired of making the payments, like you should just be able to, what? I just want to live. You know, I'm not saying don't stop making your payments, but get your contracts, get your in paper contracts, and let's go over them. We're going to figure out exactly where these contracts broke your natural constitution, and we're going to write them back. And we're gonna invoke your rights. Okay. Now this is again only if you want to do this. Exactly. It is a con. And so basically we are going to be, I want to help as many people as I can. I'm not someone who's like, oh, let's discharge debt right now. Let's do all this right now. Like I help you educate yourself on how to do this. Okay, that's my goal.
It's so funny because my daughter called me and she's like, "What?"
They just muted themselves. Sweet. Okay, so yeah, basically I want to focus on you guys, the ones that have come to this class. If you guys are in any contracts, whether that's with your phone bill, your electricity, your internet, any single one of them. Most of you called your internet company or you called your people and said, electricity, turn on the electricity and just send me the bill in the mail. You didn't even ask for a contract. You didn't even sign anything. When electricity companies are literally a monopoly. They're breaking the law by only offering you one service. There's not multiple electricity companies around you. And so a lot of the ways that they get people is by signing online. They get you to sign contracts that are not in form, that have no substance. There's no real paper trail. Okay, so this is how they can also get you to have signed up for contracts. It's a con. Okay. Treaties. These are laws made between two sovereigns that deal with a particular tract of land. I like to dive in a little bit more into this thing of treaties, because it doesn't actually have to do only with a particular tract of land. I'm all about, you know, consciousness shifts and bringing awareness to that life is manipulation, in the sense of I can start talking about tacos and food and you know, it can distract someone else's mind that wasn't, you know, wasn't there. Okay. And so another form of a treaty with another person is, and it happens all the time, storytelling. For example, if someone's like, oh my God, did you hear what happened? This is what I heard what happened. And then somebody else, oh my gosh, that is what happened. Let me go tell other people. This is that right there. That was an implied treaty, an implied contract. Somebody offered information, the other person, without asking what they meant, without any questions, was like, yeah, that's what happened. And now they're both locked in on a belief system that may or may not even be real. Does that make sense? And this is happening all over unconsciously, is people are being asked to agree, sovereigns are being asked to mentally agree to stories about particular tracts of land, aka the United States, aka America, aka. So again, what implied treaties, what implied contracts, exactly. Gossip happens, rumors spread. What implied treaties, what implied gossips are you personally involved in? And are you going to stop it? When someone asks you, hey, how's your partner? Well, I'm not my partner. So how could I possibly answer that? If this person actually cared about my partner, they would go ask my partner. But instead, most people are like, oh, he's great. And then so everyone around is just assuming that guy's great. My partner's great. What if he's not? What if he's like actually like depressed and would love if friends would reach out to him? I don't know. So for me, I don't do that. I say, oh, well, actually, you're gonna have to ask him. I don't know. I don't know I don't know how he is, you know? And this is huge, because people share stories expecting for you to contract with it. And if you ask it questions, what do you disbelieve? Okay. So again, I go over this history and these things not to be like, this is the way things are. This is what you have to believe. Because I'm not like that. I know that you guys all have your own constitution. You guys have all your own belief systems that were given to you by your experience, which your experience was created by God. So who am I? Who is anyone to say what you know about yourself, you're wrong? You're not. What you know about the other might not be correct, because as soon as you knew about it, it changed. So there's a knowing of oneself and a knowing of, you know, like, okay, when I turn this key, the car is going to turn on. You know, you can depend on certainties like that, but that's not our spirits. Okay. Each one of us has a constitution within our own belief system, which is dictating our rights and wrongs. Okay. And you are already a corporation. The one was created for you, and if you want to create a bunch of other ones outside of yourself, like an LLC, limited liability corporation, you know, PMA, you want to do like a private membership association, woohoo, like these are dead fictitious entities that operate under the laws of the Constitution, developed by a sovereign, but does not have the ability to create laws, can only create codes, statutes, and ordinances. So, for example, when you go to Costco, you can't go unless you got a Costco card. They created that code, that statute, that ordinance. And they don't care. If you don't have a Costco card, you're not coming in. Okay, and that is their right. It is not unconstitutional. It is not anything like that. Okay, so you can do the same thing. You can create a group of people, and that group of people, you know, whenever they get together, they got to take their shoes off. Okay, they know that whenever they get together, their shoes are going to be off. It doesn't mean they have to keep their shoes off wherever else they go. Okay, so you are able to subscribe to corporations. You are able to not subscribe to corporations. You know, it's really just figuring out for you what corporations, what contracts, what treaties, what belief systems were brought into your reality. Which ones do you want to continue subscribing to, and which ones do you not want to continue subscribing to? Okay. Next is the federal codes which governs corporations within corporations. This include the UCCs. The UCCs are the Uniform Commercial Code, which is in the United States codes under Title 15 USC 1692. The UCC codes are within like that area, and basically these are the codes that control contracts, control contracts that have to do with money. So even if there is a dollar exchanged, the UCCs are what the corporations dealing with money to money, they're utilizing the UCCs. Okay. Police corporations and agents, private agencies of corporations they belong to, equivalent to a private citizen. A little story about our policy enforcers, policemen of the America, of this land. Okay. World War II. America was in World War II for one day. One day on paper. And it only entered it so that it could be a part of the deal that was going on. Like I've mentioned, I've taken history denying, and I just want you guys to know that when Japan came and bombed Pearl Harbor, they came and bombed some planes. They came and blew up some planes. Okay. Right next to what they blew up was all of the fuel for the entire American military. It was at Pearl Harbor. All of the fuel for all of their planes, everything. And the Japanese were pretty smart, you guys. They were pretty smart. If it was the Japanese that flew over from Japan to come after America, they would have bombed the fuel. But they didn't. They didn't even touch the fuel. And then this gave America the right to drop a bomb on Japan, which then ended the war, even though the war wasn't even with them. The war was with Germany. And within this, they also, FDR also to create a deal with Germany afterwards, basically created a deal with the UN, United Nations, where they were like, hey, you know what? Give us, because we have Washington, D.C., give us all of your policy enforcers. Those now belong to us. So policy enforcers, policemen, are owned and operated by the United States corporation that is owned by England and Britain, the Queen, and the Vatican. Okay, so again, this is why policemen have been doing things that have not felt right for quite some time, because they no longer back the Constitution or the people of America. They are private citizens for the corporations, the private agencies of corporations that they subscribe to. Now, sheriffs are a different story. But as any policy officer or enforcer, no matter what, they are also a sovereign. And if they choose to take that title and apply it to the United States corporation and subscribe to the United States corporation, then that is not a sheriff that you're going to be able to work with. But it is also that sheriff's right to choose. Okay, so you can be a lawyer, a private attorney general, pursuant 42 USC 1980. You can be a private attorney general, and that is someone that is an employee of the corporation that goes in to make sure that they're abiding by their corporate laws, the UCCs that they created. Okay, and the UFCs that they created. That's a private attorney general that can represent themselves. They can represent another person. They can, or another people. And it really all depends on you, your knowledge, what you're willing to stand under. Okay. And then the last one on the very, very bottom of the hierarchy of laws is citizen, a slave of the corporation to which it pledges, does not have rights, only has privileges that are given to it by the corporation by which it pledges, to which it pledges. And again, all of you have unknowingly had your name and your corporation pledged to the all caps United States of America Corporation. Now, I'm not here to be like, oh my God, you have to do something about it. It's up to you. Okay, it is completely up to you. No, so basically a private citizen is more, it's like one step above, like, how like a police officer can't tell a judge what to do, but a police officer can tell a citizen what to do. So it's almost like they're an in-between a citizen and a judge or anything higher, like they're the people that the higher ones utilize to control the citizens. And they're still like not even really that. It's just equivalent to a private citizen, which a private citizen is also someone who you live privately, because you can be a citizen to if you create your own nation, you could be a citizen of your own nation, but you are still a slave to your own belief system, which we're very aware of. We're all Our belief system is what's manifesting our reality. This has been proven with the double slit experiment, where they proved that the outcome of a scientific experiment depends on the belief system of the person having the experiment. So actually, life can change in the blink of a belief system shift. And we've seen this. We know this. It happens. Now, is someone willing to shift their belief systems? That's on them. That's why in the first class, I go into belief systems and how important they are, and how important your values are, and how important, you know, these little bits of our mind, because what we do small is what we do big. And so basically, I don't have a set goal for any of you guys, or anything like that, besides freedom in the mind, you know? So next week, or in 2 weeks, like I said, I would like you guys to figure out what contracts you're in. If you have any questions between now and then about like, hey, is this a contract? Hey, is this? Reach out to me. I have no problem. Like, you know, like I want to help as many people as I can. So far, I've, oh yeah, and then also I do want to touch base. I think it was in 19, I'm not sure exactly the year. Pretty sure it was either in the 70s or 80s, but there was also something called the credit reporting agencies, which is this is how they've limited unlimited credit. And the credit reporting agencies are under 15 USC 1681. So I'm really going to go into those next week. So also, if you can, if you feel called and you'd like to clean up your credit report, we can also focus on that. You know, we can go, we're going to be going into the specific laws. And my goal is to help at least one or two of you write up some letters that you can then, you know, we can utilize as examples, and then you can change things. And you know, I've helped people remove bankruptcies. I've helped people get out of contracts, of banking contracts. You know, because of that HJR 192 that we all went into, debt discharge is available to citizens. It is available because citizens, there's no money, there's no gold. And then again, I don't like, you know, creating a you have to. I do want to bring awareness to Trump, I believe, did get a lot of America's gold back in these last few years. He got like a shit ton of gold. And so they are doing their best to drain the Federal Reserve of its fake money. And they're replenishing with gold-backed money. The quickest way to do this is to bankrupt the United States corporation. And the way to do that is to revoke your citizenship. Basically, there are 10, when someone revokes their citizenship, that does not mean that they lose any benefits, anything. They don't lose their Social Security, they don't lose their retirement, they don't lose anything. All they're doing is revoking the power that the corporation has over them. And we have about 10 million Americans that have done this. We need 650 million, oh wait, 6.5 million Americans to revoke their, no wait, no, it's I think it's 650, or it's 65 million or something like that. It's not 6.5, 65 million, because 650 million, that's more than the United States. Yeah. 65 million to revoke their citizenship, to literally bankrupt them to where they won't even be able to function anymore. And just so you guys are aware, every state, the state of California, the state of, like I'll show you guys right here. Go to Dun and right there, Dun and Bradstreet. Search. When I put in, oh yeah, see, they're like trying to charge people now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, it costs money now, but when you used to put in 0715, let me see if I can do it, 0715 49000. It is the state of California. There it is. Boom. This is the corporate state of California, and if I could find it on the yeah, Dun and Bradstreet, they're charging people now, the jerks. But Dunn's, you can see the number right here because the state of California is a corporation, and so all the states of Louisiana, states of this, they're all corporations, and most of them are they're going bankrupt because there's no money. Okay, so that's why when people are like, oh, the government's taking forever to get me my money, to get me this, that's literally because they're bankrupt. They literally have to go rob someone to get your money. They literally they are you know, they're literally stealing children from parents to force a birth certificate, and then they get $2 million dropped into their bank, you know, for every child that they steal and get to sign up, every parent that they get to sign a birth certificate at the hospital, every parent that they get. So they're in the hospitals, they're in here, they're in there, everywhere they're going is they're trying to get people to enroll as a citizen. Okay, so really just taking this next 2 weeks to find out not only the citizen contracts that you're in, but the financial ones, even the ones with your family and friends, you guys. What are the expectations? Are your friends constantly, I believe it's 65 million. I'm not sure on that, so I'll get back to you. We've done 10 million. 10 million have revoked their citizenship. I'm one of them. And once you revoke your citizenship, you can also get well, not once you revoke, you can get a national passport whenever, but there is a national passport available. Because on the DS-11 form, if you read the acts and conditions on the back, it says on there, excuse me, if you apply for this passport, you're telling us that you're a criminal, that you're a trafficker, that you're an enemy of the state. This is why TSA can search you. This is why any of that can happen, because you're telling them that you're a criminal. Whereas it says on there, if you write an affidavit of truth, not saying you're any of this, and putting it with the application, then you get something that's called a national passport. But what I personally subscribe to is actually revocation of citizenship first. So that way, not only do you have this passport that's do not stop, do not detain, a rightful right to conceal and bear arms. So you can actually get like guns or things like that, and you can have them concealed with no license. Literally, the policeman pulls you over, you hand them the passport, they give it back and let you go. Because within their corporation, there is a status that's saying, no, I'm not a citizen. It's a little bit easier to do that when you've revoked your citizenship, but if you've already revoked it in your mind because you've done enough research to know, then you can get a national passport without revocation. It really depends on you, on what you want. If you don't, you know, there is a trust that is in your name that you can get 50% access to, because it's technically this SDK that was made in your name. It's a public trust within the United States corporation. So you know, like it's not 100% yours, because it's basically like an agreement that we're all in this together. And so you can get ownership of 50% of your minor estate, or 50% of your trust, take full accountability of your minor estate. You know, so it really depends on you. So well, revocation is literally, it's a affidavit of truth that you would send to Anthony Blinken, who is the United States Attorney General. He's the only one that can change your status in the actual like system, the United States system. And then once you get, like, you send it to him certified mail and to a couple other people, and then once you get that back, you do a proof of service, and that proof of service and a deed of reconveyance and a couple other paperwork are evidence that you utilize for your passport application. So when you do the passport application, we have you fill it out a specific way, and you give it to them, and then they give you a passport that it looks the exact same as any other passport, but in the system, it's a national passport instead of a citizen passport. And you get a card and a book, and it's the same thing, it's just different in the background. And this is called living privately. Okay, when you live, when you've got your shit together in the private, and in the public, you're willing to be with the public. Okay. And this is it's not necessarily a long, hard process. It's just more of a, we're rebuilding our land again, because, you know, corruption, data corruption has occurred, and not everyone's going to be called to that. You know, I have noticed that, because a lot of, you know, millennials and, younger, they actually saw what the corporations were doing, that a lot of us actually get to do what we love. For example, I'm a life coach, I'm a neurolinguistic reprogrammer. Like, I get to do all these things that I love and I get paid for. So I haven't worked for a corporation or a job in like 7 years. I even tried to get a job, and they're like, you haven't worked in 7 years. I was like, I know. They're like, well, we're good. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't want this anyway. So whereas, you know, our parents or people that are older, they gave their lives to the corporation and didn't realize that they gave their lives to fraud until recently. So I've noticed there's more of a calling for them to get access to the trust and get access to all that. Whereas, like, we, the younger crowd, we also see that with Q and with Trump and some of the older crowd, of course, that we see that there is a new reality that's being built in the background of all the corruption, which is, you know, Trump got the gold back. We're creating gold backed dollar bills. Basically, Abraham Lincoln's financial monetary system is back. Like, we're bringing it back. We are the government's going to be gold backed again. It's in the process. It takes time, and it takes the American people being willing to stand up and face everything and rise, instead of face everything and blame. Okay, this is why I'm doing these history classes, because I'm so tired of hearing people blame history. Like, no. Everyone was doing the best they could with what they had, and we are the only ones that can stand up for ourselves. His story doesn't actually matter, because it's not your story. Okay, so I mean, you can go back into all the history and learn all the things, and, you know, there's so much that I'm leaving out, because I have realized, to my reality, it didn't actually matter. It only created more information for me to process, to actually take the steps in my own life. Okay, so I've just come to realize that for the consciousness, less is more. The less information, the more empowered, the more we can embody it, and the more empowered we become. Because knowledge is not power until it lives inside the body through experience and through embodiment, not just because someone said something. Just because they said it doesn't make it so. And it's not getting a revocation. It's literally, it's like I said, it's a letter that you send in, basically telling them you're tired. And we have templates for it and things like that. But yeah, so that's what I'm going into for today. And actually, yeah, I will actually just go into, so trust indentures, just so you guys are aware. Trust are indentures. So indentured slaves were people that were backed by trust. And remember, each basically republic had a bank and they had a public trust account. And so again, remember, nationals, republics, when there were people had their trades. Some people, you know, families would hand down their trade, where there would be a couple of those outliers of people that didn't have a trade. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just becoming troublemakers and things like that. Those were the ones that became indentured slaves and were kind of like sent off to other lands and to other places. Yes, if you like to use that, it's more you are the executor of your own LLC. But LLCs have limited liability. So we don't personally, in the national community, we don't personally recommend LLCs. We more recommend PMAs, because LLCs are within the corporation. A PMA is a private membership association. So like you could open up a restaurant with a PMA and have people commit to paying you monthly so that you can have your own bylaws. Like you don't have to create, you know, you don't have to be within the United States corporation system. You can have a private membership association and not have to pay your LLC taxes to the state of California, because the state of California is a fucking corporation that you don't subscribe to. Yes, yes. So PMA, private membership association, those are great. But basically trusts are, you know, like there's a public trust that were in banks of republics, in the sense of like, you know, when someone died, and if they didn't have the money, they would help that family take care of the death. They would help pay for the funerals. They would do this because there was a public trust that everyone was a part of it. And that is what the United States corporation trusts, when we're born, are meant to be. We are the beneficiaries of those trusts and the executors. The government is the trustees. So there's two routes one can go. Either you can say, F the government, I'm going to do a PMA, I'm going to live my own life, I'm going to create my own reality, which, you know, a lot of us have done, me included. And then there's also, you know, utilizing the United States corporation and hey, government, and correcting the mistakes of the government. So for example, if you have a credit card, you don't have to just close the account and be done. What you can do is re-educate the CFO and be like, hey, I'm actually a private citizen, or I'm a private American national, American state national, and I'd like to have my bank accounts run through my trust. And you can create a God trust, which is like, you know how like when the bank gives you a contract to sign? Well, you can also create your own contract and bring it to the bank and have the bank run your bank account through your bylaws, which can invoke HJR 192, which can invoke, you know, these kinds of things, to where when your credit card statement gets paid, sent to your house, and the bottom of the statement, which has got to be paper, can't be online, the bottom of the statement, if you look at it carefully, it's a positive number. Wait a minute. If you owed anything, it would be negative. Okay, and then you look even further at the bottom of it, there's like the numbers like a check. But wait a minute. So this is actually a check? Yes. Bills are a money order. The bill is already paid for. It's just instead of knowing that when you went to the bank, you went to their intent, which was, I'm going to make money off of you. I know how to charge interest on your life force, which is, you know, I'm going to have you double pay. Whereas if you go in with your trust and you say, hey, this is how things are going to be run here, and I'm going to invoke my right to accept for value, basically. So those money orders, there's something called where you write on it, accepted for value, which the value of it is the thing. So all you do is send that back into the company, and they, you know, no, we're not charging interest from them because usury is against God's law, and banks don't have any money to loan. Usury is against God's law. We would never charge them interest. All we would be doing is making sure that, like, for example, if you have a 3,000, you're like, I want to open up a credit card for $5,000, and you spend $3,000 in a month, and they send you the bill. All you're going to do is send that piece of paper back. You're not going to go online and pay it out of your pocket. You're not going to, you know, send a check. You're not going to put your credit card information to pay off the bill. No, it's already paid, because remember, there's no debt. There's no money in the first place. So how could they be charging you anything? So no, we're not charging them interest. Yes. Yes. So instead of accept or reject, the third alternative, yes, is both. You can accept and reject. Basically, it's all up to you. It's just because of how many, it depends on who your, that's the thing, is a lot of people stay away from it because they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to, they'll basically, what they'll do, Michelle, is like, without having created that trust beforehand, they learn this information and they just literally like return their bill all of a sudden to Bank of America, accepted for value. Bank of America is like, no, you signed a contract that said you accepted our value, which is you have to pay this out of pocket. So once they, you know, get rid of the, that's why Bobby and David, they say, revoke your citizenship, get your national passport, get your trust, then go to the bank with your trust, and that's what's going to kickstart the allowance of accepted for value. But that's why they say, because they're collective teachers, I'm more individual. They say, just no, stay away from it because you're not there yet. You haven't done your things. You haven't, you know. So that's, which I agree. I so agree. You know, don't just try to tell the banks if you've already signed a contract with them. Don't try to tell them what to do. You got to learn to read the contract that you signed, get out of it, and then maybe close that account and then reopen one with a trust. Okay. Yes, you send the bill back to the creditor, but again, Sam, that's not with just because you learn this, that's not what's going to happen right away. There's steps because of the ignorance of being a citizen. You got in to contracts fraudulently. So you got to take the time first to figure out the contracts, figure out where they went against, where they hoodwinked you, exactly where they hoodwinked you. And it's usually in the fact that you're having to pay debt. And you literally, you find their CFO of, and that's another thing is, for example, IRS, the taxes, the things like that. There is a specific way that each corporation asks you to fill out the money order. So again, you're not going to be able to fill them out the same way. Like if you heard someone paid theirs off through Ford or whatever. They're like, oh, I did it through Ford. And I filled it out like this. Like it might not work for you that way. You need to figure out what corporations you're involved with. You got to get to their CFO not just the people that are sending you the bill. That's automated. They're citizens. They don't know what's going on. You got to get to the higher ups, to the CFO, figure out what the CFO knows, if they know about this. And then if they do, cool, they'll usually tell you what's going on and how to create it like a money order and how to change your contract, because if they don't, they're breaking the law. And then if they don't, you educate them. You present them the evidence of HJR 192. You present them, you actually write up a parchment, a document with the historical facts of how there is no debt, how you would like to, and so you would like to dispute this contract, and how you would like to remedy it, because you have the right to remedy. Okay. But yeah, Michelle, I definitely never recommend, like, oh yeah, right when you learn this knowledge, go and just try to pay your debts off. No way. So I do agree with David and Bobby. Stay away from accepted for value until you truly understand the contracts that you're in, and when you're ready to open up your trust, and open that up with a bank. So that way, again, it's your laws that the bank has to follow, because the bank becomes your trustee, and the trustee must do what benefits the beneficiary, which you would be the decider of what benefits you, which is, if you want to accept your bills for accepted for value for the piece of paper, great. But yeah, thank you guys so much for taking this time with me today. It's a lot of fun for me. I love just neutralizing things, not making it about fear. Yes, in another word, learn the laws that you need to learn. You don't need to study every single law. That's why I want you guys to take these next week, 2 weeks, figure out what contracts you're in, and then per the ones that come, we're gonna go, I'm gonna show you guys the USCs, how they work, how to find things, and what, how to then create templates and things like that, to where who you write to, because the corporation, you guys, is so big and it's been around since 1871. The corporation's false way of keeping people in debt is truly what most people believe is the way life should be, especially baby boomers. And so it's not an easy road to educate these corporations. So that's why I recommend going straight to the higher ups and then making noise, sending letters to the CFO, the CEO, their registered agents, their lawyers, who you just, boom, you bombard them and they make changes. Okay. And it is a process of re-education, and we go up and it'll trickle down. Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for taking this time. I really appreciate all of you. And I will see you in 2 weeks. If you have any questions between then, reach out. I'm available. I do love to help. I love to respond. I don't reach out and invite myself, but I am available. Thank you guys. I love you so much. And I'll send you guys the recording either today or tomorrow. But yeah, thanks guys. Bye.